I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And I'm JT.
He pops in from the side. Yes, again, JT is back from the abyss, you know.
Huzzah.
Yes, for those of you who are always wondering, why is JT not here? JT will give up his seat immediately for anybody who wants to be on the show. So
That's the way to do it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we are here with another episode of Ghostmail. You guys have sent us in a lot of stories of various paranormal encounters, so please continue doing that because we're loving it, and you guys seem to be really enjoying us reacting to the Ghostmail stories. So
yeah, they're one of our they're one of the videos with the highest retention rate, meaning people listen
straight
to the
through.
whole thing.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, they're crazy stories. So
they're great stories.
Exactly. So definitely send us in your ghost mail. If you have one, you can send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com, and maybe we will read it on the show. But before we get into that, we do have a few announcements. So we have Lake Lanier's episode that should be up already at this point. JT and I went to Lake Lanier to do an exclusive podcast for the Parajunkies. So if you are not a Parajunkie, maybe you should consider becoming one so you can check out that really awesome episode. But JT, do you have any other announcements for us?
No, just why is it so great to be a Parajunkie, Madison?
Well, we have exclusive episodes. We have Discord. We have exclusive merch shops. We've got fun people. We've got us there to interact with you. We are basically your 24/7 ghost connection. So we're constantly talking to people over on Parajunkie Land, if you will, about different ghostly encounters and things like that. All sorts of fun stuff going on over there.
For sure. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. I think we can go ahead and just jump right into it.
All right. Sounds
all right.
good.
So this first story is from Tessa Reber, and it's titled "The Haunting at 412 Price Street."
Ooh, is this Savannah?
There you go.
Ooh.
I know. All right. Hey, guys, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible. The story takes place from November 3rd through the 7th of 2022. Ooh, recent. Okay,
wow.
All right. Myself and my 5 bridesmaids came to Savannah for my bachelorette party and stayed in an Airbnb at 412 Price Street. I will say that I am the only one in this group that believes / will acknowledge that the paranormal is real. I was sharing a room with my friend who is dead asleep with earplugs in on the far left side of the bed. I laid down and turned the lights off. The second I closed my eyes, I felt someone sit on the end of the bed near my feet. I immediately opened my eyes and saw nothing. My friend had not moved at all. I jumped up and told the other girls what happened and told them to keep the door open. Completely freaked out, I said out loud in the room, "Okay, I get that you are here, but you cannot be on the bed."
She said, "Sit on the floor."
And laid back down. I would soon regret saying that because as soon as I fell asleep, I was woken up by the feeling of someone leaning over me and shoving me down in the bed, waking me up.
Ooh.
Aggressive. Okay.
Feisty ghost.
The next couple of nights were followed by night terrors. Anytime I fell asleep and things shuffling around in the room. I don't know how, but I just know this spirit was a female. And that she was absolutely not going to let me sleep as long as I was there. Wow. Okay. I've never experienced anything as strong as this before, and she didn't bother anyone else in the house. I felt like a weight was lifted off my chest as soon as the plane took off, taking me back to Florida, and I fell asleep peacefully for the first time in days. Okay.
Wow.
I would love to hear what you guys think. Why would she target me? I'm afraid to come back to Savannah because of this.
Oh no. Just don't stay there again.
If she felt it all the way to the airport,
Yeah.
Some people will actually say that Savannah feels like there's almost like a dome over it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a threshold that you cross. And once you're inside that threshold, things feel notably different. Like they have this sensation that, my reality altered just a little coming into, and I want to say it's like from the bridge over to mid-town kind of just a dome of
the bubble.
Honestly, I can vibe with that.
I can feel that. Yeah.
I can vibe with that. A couple more sentences. Why would she target me? I'm afraid to come back to Savannah because of this. I feel like I am not welcome there. I've left out a lot, but that's basically the main event. Loving the podcast and can't wait to hear more from you guys. Tessa R. Woof.
So,
Wolf is right.
Fascinatingly, there are a lot of elements of the story that are hag. That have a hag connotation to it. Like when they describe like hag attack or being ridden by the hag, a lot of those elements being pushed down into the bed, the sensation of something there, night terrors are a big part of that experience. And it kind of goes into the sleep paralysis, construct of when people are trying to explain what is happening to you, going the logical route. But, Price Street used to be the eastern boundary of the city of Savannah.
I'm going to Google the address.
Yeah, I was
So
literally
I want to
about
say
to do
that must be not far from your house, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's why I'm really wondering.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it would be just south
I will
of
literally
Liberty.
let you know.
Right. Yeah, I find it interesting that you felt
LOL.
What?
It's literally let's see. It's on the opposite. Okay, so it's south of us by only a block. And
Wow.
it's like, as the address says, it's on Price Street and East Jones Lane. So it's the alleyway.
There it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And that is a bizarre area.
It is.
That whole construct, Price Street, but certainly Jones Street. That there's a lot of different stories that could be going on there. And as far as being targeted,
Yikes.
a good chance is you engaged. You're the one who spoke to it. You're the one who and we talk about this all the time. There's an invitation with contact. You are initiating a contact, and I think you said it in the letter itself. It was a mistake to engage it that way, and we're of the belief that you can always draw boundaries with certain spirits, that by saying no and by putting them in their place. But if they are forceful past that point, you might be dealing with something a little more intense than your friendly neighborhood ghost. You might be dealing with, and again, whenever we say demon, we are not pulling up full connotations of a Christian construct of what a demon is, but we are speaking of non-human entities. We're speaking of destructive non-human entities, because there is a demonic trail to it. The night terrors really bring up the idea that you're dealing with something that's psychologically damaging you.
Yeah.
And something lingering with you to the point where you're feeling it all the way to the airport, It can be tricky when you're staying in Airbnbs, especially because you never know who's been in there.
Right.
You never know what's happened in the place. And then you're in Savannah on top of it. And if you're in that area, you're dealing with houses that are from more than likely the 1800s. And so you never know what somebody could have brought about in that place. And maybe you could have, had a similar energy as whoever brought the entity into the place, and it didn't like
That's
that.
what I was just about to say. I'm like, I want to know if her hair is like a different color than everyone else's, because or just something like that. Maybe she has fair skin.
Well,
maybe
she was the bride.
Yeah.
That's a that's a standout
So
person.
she was shining as it
bride.
was.
She said that she was with her 5 bridesmaids.
Yes.
And so that stands you out in like all regards, because
and gosh, there are countless stories of vengeful brides. You know, and the kind of jealousy that comes from a spirit who maybe died on their wedding night or died as a result of their marriage. Perhaps their husband killed them. They could see brides as this outlet for their rage and their anger and their disappointment, jealousy, things like that. So yeah, that is an excellent point, that brides do carry, in folklore alone, brides are a very celebrated and even mystical appointment.
Sure.
And there's also, not negating the point too, that you were, I'm assuming, on your bachelorette trip. And, I know of plenty of spirits in Savannah that are very staunchly against partying or any kind of ruckus. So,
but that wouldn't separate her unless her other bridesmaids are just like, super chill and not partying at all, and she's the only one. That wouldn't.
No, that's not what
separate
I'm
her.
saying. Though, is that you're still distinguished
You become
as
the focal point. Right?
You're still distinguished as the bride. So that would be the reason why it would more than likely be like, you're the cause of this. You're the root, because you're the cause of the celebration.
I disagree with that one. I disagree with that one, because I think that this spirit that she's talking about is an intelligent haunting, just like Alice Riley, just like Maggie Hunter, in the way that they can differentiate things. And I think that they're not just looking for a source, like a dummy walking around in a room, trying to find something.
That's not what I was saying, though.
I mean, no, I know, but I'm just saying that they're not looking for the source of the partying. I think there's something that she doesn't like about her in particular, and it's not the fact that she's a bride. I don't get that.
I don't know. Brides are targeted. I mean, that is a common theme. You can there are ghost stories all around the world about brides leading up to their wedding day being targeted by malicious spirits. Lots of spirits don't like the idea of a holy union at all. Some cases it's jealousy. Some cases it's and mind you, I think that folklore is a highly chauvinistic field.
Sure.
So, we place like lots of importance on virgins and lots of importance on these very tricky to assemble, rites of passage and things like that. However, being the focal point of celebration might be enough. A bunch of people celebrating you, could be enough to stir jealousy. And let's not forget that when you get a group of women together, you are now dealing with a very powerful metaphysical force. The concept of covens and the concept of women's abilities and potencies in various fields. Because again, not entering gender politics, entering folklore and the belief of folklore. We used to kill women when they gather together. You gather together and the society says, oh, there's something wrong with that. We don't want a bunch of women gathering together.
Yeah.
Right.
Find the person in charge and punish them. All of those things can play into it. However, I think because, without a library of events of the place. However, you are also, I want to say that you're kind of in at that location because it was outskirts. You're kind of in, I think, the Irish ghettos. I think that's the area.
Which would be even more interesting.
Right.
Well, because, so Irish specific folklore when it comes to the Fae specifically.
Oh boy, she wanted to be some Fae.
Okay, listen. If you were on my live stream last Saturday, you would know we had a deep discussion about the Fae, and the Fae were watching. So, regardless, anyways, the Fae specifically.
You're so cute.
Okay, well, do you know why brides wore veils over their face in Irish weddings?
Yeah.
It was to conceal the bride, to protect them against the Fae, because they had this belief that the Fae would harm the bride.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of early on.
So,
all right, I retract.
And keep in mind
my statement
that anytime we talk about things like the Fae or anything of that nature, what we're really talking about is how people were categorizing events that they didn't understand. We come up with the Fae and the names of the Fae and all these things, but really our contact is observational at best. Like if you had actual encounters with the Fae and they're giving you information, you probably didn't live to tell the tale. You know, so a lot of times it's like, what is happening here? Why are brides dying so much? Why are these things happening? And then they come up with the story that makes sense. I mean, folklore is a categorization of events that are unexplained, and people look for the explanation. And that is the power of folklore, is that it does cement itself in a lot of ways, and you can find traces. You can start to say, this looks like the behavior that they're talking about, and therefore there's nothing out of the ordinary in evoking the name Fae or talking about the Fae in this manner, because it was an observable thing. Yeah. It was observable long enough for people to make stories of it, and not just make stories, but create behaviors. Don't walk over there. Don't follow that light. Don't be over here. Wear a veil. Cover the mirror. All these things are Fae related because people observed something and said, "Oh, that's messed up. What do you think it is?" Well, we're going to blame it on the Fae. Let's start there.
Blame it on the little people.
Blame it on the little people. Blame it on these things.
That's why I laughed, is because you blame like a lot, not everything, but you blame a lot on the Fae. Someone trips with their piece of pizza and face plants, you're like, Fae.
No.
but what I'm saying is that's legitimate, because that is how we came to know all of these things. Was somebody somewhere, like. The Japanese have yukai.
It's the
yokai. They have a spirit for everything. Literally, like if you fart in public, there was a ghost that did that. That made you do that. Oh, so they create a bunch of different spirits to represent almost every conceivable bad thing that could happen. Sure. Give it a name. Give it a source, and you can try to protect yourself against them. There are measures. It's like, I don't want to fart in public, so I'm going to fight that ghost. I'm going to fight that ghost, and come up with rituals that stave off all gas related incidents while in public. So these are things that I think, as cultures grow and share, like observations, like I've noted that brides die before they get to the altar. Well, what do? Well, let's hide her.
Yeah,
I think that was what bridesmaids were. Decoy brides.
Yes, that's exactly what they were.
They were decoy brides.
That's why. Okay,
that's crazy.
That was another reason why the bridesmaids traditionally all wore the same dress, and it was supposed to traditionally be a similar style to the brides, so that the bridesmaids would be sacrifices, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
So to keep the bride safe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like a military tactic.
It is a military tactic. It really is.
Well, in the Fae is just a catch-all term for a mess of different mythical creatures and things like that.
But super strong in Irish and Celtic lore.
Yeah.
It's something to because I know that there is a large contingent of people whose eyes immediately roll every time they hear the word Fae, thinking that what we're referring to is something solid, something truly known. What we know of the Fae are the stories and the idea that those powers, whatever they may be, exist, because people took it so seriously. They took it so seriously. And when you think about how seriously they took it into the 21st century, there are still people who will not do certain activities specifically out of what we call a superstition, but I would dare say is a deep and long enduring knowledge of something that we can't explain. So I'm always open to Fae discussion, but I should put it on the table that for the listeners who want to be like, Fae, these are things that people have recorded for time immemorial. They are as present in every culture on the face of the earth. Something that you can't just... in Japan, there's a story of Urashima Taro. In Ireland, there's a story of Osen, and they are the same story, but they are separated by land and by ocean and by time. So be aware that we hold on to certain things for a reason.
Right. It's it's interesting too because we even celebrate holidays of driving the Fae underground. You know,
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So it's St. Patrick's Day.
Oh.
Yeah. So because St. Patrick, you know, drove the Fae into out of the country essentially. He drove them underground.
Did he?
Yes.
Yeah, keep in mind that Ireland is not known for their snakes.
Yeah.
The terrain is not snake friendly.
Right. Exactly. But that was, you know,
But it was the pagans, the Fae, the beliefs
of all the
structured around
the things.
I would like to give a shout out to Lexi Dean because she just became a pear junkie.
Oh,
Lexi Dean.
Yay, Lexi
Lexi
Dean.
Dean. Cool. All right. Have you seen your TikTok on our page? Oh, you haven't, have you?
No.
Oh, it's
What
at
is it?
1.8 million views.
Why?
I know, right?
It's from the Two Girls One Ghost podcast.
Oh,
Check that
okay.
out. That was last Tuesday. It was the mirror and doppelganger.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
People
It's the most successful thing we've ever done.
people go feral
Well, you know,
over doppelgangers.
Doppelgangers are nightmarish. Just the concept and idea behind it. But that's amazing. That's great.
I know.
Well, there you go.
It's so funny. And the next one that's going to go viral is Japanese fart ghost. Anyway, all right, here we go. Here we go. All right, on to the next one. Thank you, Tessa. That was really fascinating.
Yeah.
And honestly, because of our proximity, to it.
And if it's an Airbnb, we can rent that thing
We
out.
can.
And we can do an investigation.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm actually pretty sure I shot a movie in that Airbnb.
Oh, there you go.
I'm pretty sure I did. All right. Okay, here we go. Laura Rhodes says, this is titled Ghosts and Children. It's
Delightful.
It's a shorty. So get ready to discuss. Good morning. Over the last few months, my 11-year-old daughter has casually brought up that there is something black and shadowy in the corner of her bedroom. She hasn't specified if this is a nightly occurrence or not, but she doesn't seem to mind sleeping in there. She did ask it to leave, but no word if it left. I am open to the paranormal, to the spiritual, but I do not feel any weird vibes in her room. But I also don't want to feel weird vibes.
Could be guarded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should I sage the room? And where do I find appropriate sage in Michigan? Lastly, my daughter wants to wear obsidian. Is 11 too young? I read it may not be suitable for younger people. Any thoughts would be appreciated. Thank you, Laura. Obsidian, Madison?
I think
you're the
obsidian.
gym person?
I think obsidian should be fine for a child. I mean, it's generally just a protective
It's
stone.
a ward, absolutely.
No, that's not to say some people vibe better with different, crystals. Some people, prefer onyx. Some people prefer black tourmaline. So maybe just get a couple of each. Get a tumbler or something with like a little cage or whatever, and see what she likes best.
If you have access to like a crystal shop or something of that nature, let her walk around the shop and see if she's drawn to anything. Because oftentimes our specific natures call for specific vibratory things, certain stones, certain things, because there is universal, obsidian is a universal ward, but some people can use rose quartz very, diligently or any number of different gems, and even surprising ones that wouldn't necessarily, be cataloged as such. So sometimes it's about following your intuition.
I would also recommend snowflake obsidian. It's a little bit lighter. It's it's a different gem, but it has obsidian inclusions, which is why it's referred to as snowflake obsidian. But yes, I do recommend that one. But as for, if you do feel that it's necessary to sage her room or things like that, I would say give us a follow-up of her feelings, about the entity, because it's not to say that it's immediately a dark entity. It can be, a kind of guardian spirit of sorts. And, because not all guardian spirits are going to come through as light and bright and beautiful. There's a whole sort of different spirits that can be watching over you. And that's why it's important to trust your feeling when you see this entity, because when you get that pit in your stomach, that's usually your gut telling you like something's not right here. But if she's not feeling, threatened by it, or, feeling like it's something that wants to hurt her or feels obsessive, there is not necessarily, it's not necessary to rid yourself of it unless it becomes a problem.
What about that cinnamon thing you did to our house?
Oh, that's a whole different purpose. That's for money.
Oh,
bring it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Put some rice bowls in the corner.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what about the salt?
Salt is protective.
Salt or room?
Yeah, I mean, you can
But
put
if it's in her room, like,
right, then that's just keeping it in.
Put it in the middle of a room, then it's like.
you could circle the bed.
Right. But if you do get to the point where you feel like you want to cleanse the house or something like that, there's a whole different variety of herbs that you can use to, cleanse yourself and cleanse your home. It doesn't have to be sage. Typically garden sage, you can literally buy it at the grocery store, create a little bundle of it, and just walk around the room, saying blessings, or you can literally be as nonchalant as you want to, whatever you feel gives you the most power. But, most metaphysical shops sell like juniper bundles. They sell all sorts of stuff. The things you want to stay away from truly are like white sage or, Palo Santo, unless that is a part of your culture, because then you're dealing with closed practices and you kind of want to stay away from that. But,
He's an expert in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Should be expert in.
But yeah, that's my recommendation.
And
to
also,
you.
just as a discussion point, there's a lot of thought about girls between the ages of 11 and 15 really coming into their own as far as metaphysical awareness and abilities. So you may be entering into a phase of your daughter's life where she is more open, receptive, and even capable. So you kind of definitely want to keep an open conversation. Don't let her experience these things alone, because a lot of times that is a pretty predatory time, because that's a perfect time for a spirit to really like endear itself to the child and to having it to their own. And a lot of times one of the tactics of darker spirits is to isolate, so that that person doesn't rely on anything but the spirit for guidance, for all these things. So be aware that there's enough evidence and conversation about that age range of girl that they're coming into their power, that power is most, and unfortunately the real track that we have of following that is, again, how the patriarchal societies really came down a hammer on anyone of that age range that exhibited anything remotely preternatural or supernatural. So yeah, it's an interesting time, and the fact that it just seems to have appeared recently. I don't know if there is more history with your daughter seeing things, but if this is like the first time and it is something that she can describe and talk about, maybe her eyes are opening, and you need to be there at least to help navigate and make decisions when spirits approach or when things happen.
Yeah, I completely agree of keeping an open dialogue of it, because, coming from somebody who was able to see spirits and was witchy before I knew what witchcraft was, I did a lot of stupid things when I was a child that I didn't realize were stupid. And if I had had somebody there to guide me through this sort of task, I would say like go through it together so you can kind of oversee, and do more thorough research before your child does, candle magic in their bedrooms.
Right.
So,
and that's one
like
of
I did.
The true dangers is right now the internet
right.
is there, and you can literally be like, ghost in my corner, how do I talk to it? You can access information without consequence, and that leads to action with consequence. It's a double-edged sword. The information is out there, it's readily available, but most people are looking for that instant gratitude. They're looking for that answer, that precise answer, and there just isn't one.
Okay. All righty. Thank you so much for that story. Okay, moving on. From Laura, we are going to Ashley Werner.
Nice.
Yeah, Ashley and Jameson.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. It's called Crazy Paranormal Clairvoyant Experience.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys. Parajunkie Ashley here, a.k.a. Jameson's mom. We love Jameson.
Yeah.
Just wanted to share this crazy experience I had recently. I think Madison in particular may find it interesting. I wanted to start off by saying that I have never actually seen a ghost, but I do have the ability to sense them and hear them, as well as being an extreme empath. I also have always had the ability to know things or sense things about people with no explanation of how I know these things. Recently, I have gotten very into meditation, and for the several days before this experience, I kept getting visuals of me laying in a field of tall, dead grass that I couldn't see over, but I could see people walking towards me in the distance. This part will be relevant later, I promise. I think it's also important to mention that I come from a city in Ohio that was hit very hard by an opiate epidemic, and over the years have lost many friends due to various drug-related reasons. About 2 years ago, I unfortunately had to distance myself from another close friend after realizing he was using drugs. I also suspected he was getting mixed up with some pretty bad people. So anyways, I keep getting these visuals every time I meditate for days, no matter how hard I try to focus on something else. So a couple weeks before Christmas, I'm driving home from working the night shift. It's about 6 a.m. Normally, I would take the highway home, but it was freezing rain that morning, and I have anxiety, so I decided to take the long way home. As I'm stopped at a stoplight, I suddenly start to sense a very familiar energy around me, almost as if it was in the car with me. I then start to become overwhelmed with this intense sadness and sense of dread. As I continue driving, I cannot shake this feeling, and then suddenly out of nowhere, I start thinking about my friend I had mentioned earlier. At this point, it had been about 2 years since I talked to him, and haven't really thought too much about him since. So why was he suddenly popping up into my head now? Flash forward to later that day, I wake up to a text from a mutual friend that I was still close with that our friend had been shot and killed. His body was found that morning around 8:30 a.m., just 2 hours after I experienced all of that. It gets worse. It gets worse. He was found in a field right on the corner of an intersection. That intersection was the one I was stopped at. But I wouldn't have been able to see him because he was covered up by tall dead grass. Y'all, I cannot make this stuff up. When I got chill bumps, dude.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I got chill bumps.
Yeah.
Like, no lie. Y'all, I cannot make this stuff up. When I heard all these details on the news report, I have never been so shook in my life. I have had similar experiences like this before, but I have always been able to rationalize it in my head. Even with my aunt, who died suddenly when I was a teenager, and I knew about it before my parents even told me. I tried to chalk it up to the fact I was very close with my aunt and my cousin. So yeah, that's my crazy ass story. Madison, I would love to hear your take in this, and if you have any advice on how to stop this from happening, or at least from happening in such a jarring way. I would much appreciate your input because I am still shooketh from the experience. Stay spooky, y'all. All of the love, Ashley. Oh, and then hold on. There is a follow-up email from her, and it's titled Regarding My Story. I almost forgot. I also wanted to share this article with y'all that briefly covers my friend's case. There are still no suspects in his murder, and she sent the link to the homicide.
Wow. Well, first off, I'm sorry for your loss, Ashley. That's brutal. I mean, it sounds like less of a clairvoyance sort of occurrence, and definitely leaning heavily into your clairsentience that you have. For those listening who don't know what that means, essentially that's, people who have dreams that come true, people who have knowledge of things that they shouldn't know about, things of that nature. It's referred to as clairsentience. And also, I think the reason why this happens to you is because you're also, you have the ability to pick up on energy. So basically, clairsentience is picking up on energy. Claircognizance is the knowing things and whatnot. So it's the clairsentient side of you that knows this person's energies, considering that you were good friends. That doesn't go away. It's the same way as, JT could walk into the room in any place and I would be like, oh, JT's here. They give off certain energies when you know them like that.
Yeah, because I'm loud.
Well, that as well. But, when you have that, a lot of times when it's coupled with that claircognizance, people have been able to predict things happening to their friends and whatnot. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a way for you to fully shut that out, but I think it's actually really good for you to meditate, because the more control that you have over your abilities, the more you're able to, seclude yourselves in certain situations. And I think it'll especially help you if you're an empath. But, when it comes to situations like this, it feels almost like your friend his spirit was warning you that this was happening. And especially because you were nearby where he was found, that sensation of feeling his energy in the car, it probably was him, being like, hey, I'm here. This awful thing happened to me. And, considering that you were friends, I'm sure his spirit was kind of entrusting you to give you this knowledge for whatever reason they feel compelled for you knowing this. And I don't know if there's anything that you could have really have done to stop them from giving you this information. So it's an unfortunate gift sometimes, but it is very fascinating that you're able to have that deep of a ability, that deep of that claircognizance to be able to predict any type of situation like that, and that it's happened in the past as well. But Chris, I don't know if you have a differing point on this. But
kind of. I mean, one of the more interesting things is as you're beginning your journey into that meditative state and into the meditative world, keep in mind that the things that you are closest and recognize the most are going to be the things that shine the brightest, the things that come through the clearest. And when things happen to people we know or an impending event is coming, those are going to outshine any of the other things. Hopefully your life is not going to be filled with murder and mayhem, and you will be able to learn to broaden the scope of your meditative. It's kind of like looking at Google Maps. When you start, you've got that pinpoint of where you are, and you can only see the area around you. But in time, you'll be able to pinch that screen to see much further, many things that are not necessarily directly connected to you. And you can start to traverse and think about the other plane, because time, it doesn't really exist, and we are trapped in a notion of time. And so when an event happens and it occurs and it can cause some kind of effect upon us, whether it happened in the near future, the distant past, or wherever it is, that trail of events and that trail of the event can reach us. The closer it is to us, the more clear it is. So I wouldn't necessarily say guard against these kinds of visions. They're going to happen, but know that there comes a point when these kinds of visions are the same as receiving the news. When someone comes to the door and tells you something heartbreaking, it still breaks your heart. So, and in very rare occasions, you may see something that is preventable. You may see something that is about the energy trend. It is trending towards something, and you are manifesting an idea of what that trend will become, and you can maybe do something. So don't shut it out. Don't try to to avoid it. But the good news is, as you practice meditation, as you go further, you will get a wider scope of vision, and you'll be able to travel to places you want to go, rather than being forced to look at the things that are seeking you out. The journey to enlightenment is about finding a place of calm amongst the tumultuous everything. So hopefully, keep practicing, keep moving, and know that it's a tough line. It's hard. It's going to be hard, but we're here for you.
Yes. And also, there's a really interesting episode of Unsolved Mysteries that I think you should watch. It was this woman who moved into an apartment, and I don't know what about the apartment unlocked her cognizance, but she was, but her daughter was seeing this woman in her room and things like that, and she was having dreams of numbers and locations and all this stuff, and she was able to assist the police in locating the girl who was murdered, who lived in her apartment that she was currently staying in. So,
yeah, one of the things that stood out about this letter was you mentioned multiple people. You could sense that there were multiple people around, and I was like, that's kind of an interesting thing to know,
right?
Because it could have easily just been a one-on-one encounter, but it sounds like you may actually have some information that is beyond what the police know, and beyond what the investigators can figure out.
And there have been multiple people who have claircognizance, who have assisted in crimes and things like that. So
now, do you think that she could go to that spot, that intersection, and like be there and kind of like potentially sense something or tell that something else happened for evidence? Or
it depends on everybody has different nuances with their abilities. A lot of times that comes with deep control over your abilities. May not want to
invite that.
Right. And so, possibly it really depends, on the person, but that's a sad situation.
It's fascinating. But it does kind of give you this idea of the network of spiritual energy that we all share, and if you're connected, how somebody can pull on that connection to try to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's all the stories we have for right now. The other ones are a little bit longer, and I will tell you right now, Tiffany Shao and Corrine Denny, their stories are going to be on the next Ghostmail episode.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yep. And Tiffany Shao is actually from South Africa. So
fascinating.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
This is a South African ghost story, I believe. Again, we don't read them. We don't read them before we read them for realistic reactions. But yeah, send in your ghost mail because we could do a couple more on that episode.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, thank you to everybody who sent in a story that we read on this episode. Those were all very interesting and fun conversations. But yes, like JT said, send us in your ghost mail. We are happy to take anything long, short, in between. Doesn't really matter to us. We just want to hear your ghost stories. But also, if you don't already follow us on social media, definitely follow us over there. And we will be getting back to Q&As soon. So if you have a question for us that you would like us to answer, go ahead and utilize the Q&A button on TikTok. And our username on all social media platforms is Haunted City Podcast. So you can find us there. And then if you want to join us on Patreon as a Parajunkie, you can find us under The Savannah Underground or just Savannah Underground under Patreon. And then as well as that, we have our website, Haunted City Podcast, for all your merch stuff and all that fun things. But with that, thank you guys so much. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.